Hey everybody, I'm just sitting here thinking about informative and interesting things to talk to you about, and I thought I would make a video on resistant starch, a little helper that you might use in your diet or you might not be using in your diet and you might start soon. So all starches are composed of two polysaccharides, amylose and amylopectin. And you can look up polysaccharides if you just look up carbohydrates if you want more information on carbohydrates. But anyways, amylopectin is highly branched. It leaves more surface area available for digestion in the body. It's broken down quickly, and it creates a larger increase in blood sugar, glucose. So an insulin spike, as I like to call it, or you've heard me call it sometimes. Amylose is a straight chain. So that means that it limits the amount of surface area that's exposed to your system for digestion. And foods high in amylose are digested more slowly. So they're less likely to create a rise in blood glucose or insulin. So resistant starch is named resistant starch because it resists digestion. What does that mean? What does that mean for you? So while most starches are broken down by enzymes in our small intestine into sugar, then that's absorbed into the blood. We can't fully absorb all kinds of starch. And some starch known as resistant starch, and sometimes you'll see it in brackets RS, isn't fully absorbed in the small intestine. So that is actually making its way into the large intestine or your colon, where intestinal bacteria ferment it. So resistant starch is kind of like fiber if you want to think about it that way. But nutrition labels rarely take resistant starch into consideration. So add this one to your tool belt. Resistant starch still plays an important role in our diets, even though we don't necessarily absorb all of it, because when it's fermented, the short-chain fatty acids like acetate, butyrate, propionate, along with a bunch of gases are made. So those short-chain fatty acids are absorbed into the body for the colon, or they stay where they are, and they're used as colonic bacteria for energy. So SFCAs, as they're called, short-chain fatty acids, benefit us in a lot of different ways, and so they stimulate blood flow to the colon, increase nutrient circulation, inhibit the growth of pathogenic bacteria, no bueno, help us absorb minerals, and it helps prevent us from absorbing toxic or carcinogenic cancer-causing compounds. So the amount of SCFAs we have in our colon is related to the type and the amount of carbohydrates we consume. And if we eat lots of resistant starch, we have plenty of SCFAs. It could also help us to stay lean and healthy. So as more research is done, they're finding that less processed foods offer less energy than refined foods. And in other words, although whole foods and processed foods may contain the same amount of calories, we absorb fewer calories of energy from whole foods. Since resistant starch is incompletely digested, we only extract about 2 calories of energy per gram versus 4 calories of energy with other starches. So that means that 100 grams of resistant starch is actually only worth about 200 calories, while like 100 grams of other starch gives us 400 calories. So high resistant starch diets or foods, fill you up without filling you out. So the way that we modify or process grains and starchy vegetables in the modern or industrialized food supply takes away the amount of resistant starch we eat. So that's like cereals, like granola bars instead of oats, burgers instead of like hamburgers instead of beans, potato chips instead of boiled potatoes, and fiber like wheat bran, psyllium husk, methyl cellulose. They don't have the same benefits as those other whole foods. So to get the most benefit from resistant starch, you need to consume it in your whole food format, shape, iteration, whatever you want to call it. So most developed countries that have a highly processed diet, including North America, Europe, New Zealand, Australia, the bigger English-speaking countries, consume about 3 to 9 grams of resistant starch a day. In developing countries, their diets are usually based around whole plant foods, and so they're up to more around 30 or 40 grams a day. So some other benefits are it could improve your blood fats. Resistant starches may help to lower blood cholesterol and fats. They will make you feel more full or reach satiety, and it slows down the amount of nutrients released into your bloodstream, which keep your appetite stable. Better insulin sensitivity, so it doesn't digest into blood sugar, which means your body doesn't release as much insulin response. And then it improves your digestion, so it might alleviate. They might actually help to alleviate IBS, irritable bowel, or diverticulitis, or constipation, and even ulcerative colitis. It can add some bulk and water to your bowel movements that will add to your ability to have more regular bowel movements. So, and then another thing would be better body composition. So because there's less energy or calories per gram than other starches, it can help us to eat less, like we talked about before. If you're having a treatment for diarrhea or cholera, not in our countries, I don't think, resistant starch can help assist in rehydration because it can normalize bowel function. And then it improves your immune system, or can improve your immune system by influencing the production of immune cells and inflammatory compounds in your gut. Remember that fermentation bit, and I already posted about fermentation earlier. So you can find resistant starch in food like beans, legumes, starchy fruits and vegetables like bananas, whole grains, and then some types of cooked and cooled foods like potatoes and rice. The longer and hotter a starch is cooked, the less resistant starch it tends to have. So be careful about how you're prepping things. Anyways, if you want to know more about resistant starch or how much you should consume, you can always message me, but shoot for about 40 to 45 grams a day if you can. And it's best tolerated when you have it in solid food form rather than liquid, so rather than being in a smoothie or a juice. And they work better when accompanied with, mixed with another meal, so another type of macronutrient with your fats and your proteins. And then it's better for your consumption to be gradually increased as opposed to just hitting yourself hard. With any really shocking diet changes, we can have some crazy stuff happen with our digestive and excretory systems. So be careful. You can look up by Googling resistant starch values online to see what types of things foods have which values. So basically, in summary, we would absorb more energy or calories from cooked and highly refined processed food, and that's not good for your glucose or staying lean or your intestinal health. A lot of different bacterial cultures thrive in, or a lot of different cultures on the planet thrive and stay very lean while eating whole unprocessed legumes, intact grains, and starchy vegetables. And so resistant starch might be a factor that enables this. You might see a benefit with about 6 to 12 grams a day of resistant starch, but closer to 20 grams. And this is easy to do if you eat plenty of whole plant-based foods. So remember not to go too hot and heavy. More than 40 grams a day might cause digestive problems. And if you have any questions, as usual, please fear not sending me the email. I will read it with my special blue light blocking glasses on, and I appreciate all the questions you guys put out there. So if you belong to the private client group, you will see a nice little poster that came up already preempting this video with some ideas of fat resistant or resistant starches. So see what you have in your cupboards and see if you can add a few more things to your diet. Take care.